now want to introduce you to a few of our stable of experts and some guys who just really do some significant ministry, significant stuff for the church. So Bill, you're first? Awesome. So Bill Shalkowski is from the Salomon Foundation, and he knows about lending, and he knows about what it takes for churches to get from where they're at to where they're going. So would you guys welcome Bill as he comes today?
Good morning. It's still morning. Great. Glad to be here. And what I want to do is just take a minute to just tell you about the Salomon Foundation. Give you the little less than a minute intro spiel for those of you who don't know what we do. We are a church extension fund. We are regulated by the Securities Act of 1933. We're a 501c3, so we are denominationally specific as to who we can lend to. We have a little bit more flexibility relative to the investment side. There's some relationship stuff there that you can take advantage of to be able to invest with the Salomon Foundation. We have that opportunity. I think I left cards with everybody. The best way to advance an opportunity to become invested, whether it be a church or an individual, is just to either shoot me an email or a text, and I'll just get you some information and move on from there. What I wanted to do today was, I can talk a lot about buildings the same way that the Weaver guys can, and Don can. I've been in construction my entire life. And what I thought today was, what would be the best thing to present to churches that are looking to do something? When you're looking to do something relative to a growth model or a next steps model, sometimes you just really need to understand what you as a church and as leadership should be looking at and the steps that you want to take to then make a decision to go forward. So what I wanted to talk about today is the next steps for responsible, God-honoring church growth. By the way, our number one core value at the Salomon Foundation is to honor God. So we really like to see everything come back to the kingdom-minded perspective. So the first one that I talk about with all the churches is to know your congregation and their desire to grow. Because you might have some folks in your church that really like things the way they are. It's funny how that works. You know, you're looking for big vision. You're looking to expand the kingdom, the Great Commission, like we're called to, but yet you're always going to have some folks that you're going to have to, they're going to push back a little bit. And the pushback can look different. You can get way down the road with some folks and then find out that they really weren't looking to be welcoming and inviting. So I guess the way that I kind of bottom line this with a lot of the churches and a lot of the leaders I get to talk to is the same folks that got you to 100 may not be the folks that get you to 200. So again, you have to understand, some folks already are at their capacity to invite. Their friends are sitting next to them. So there's a lot of things you have to go through when you look at knowing your congregation and their desire to grow, because at the end of the day, the folks in the seats are going to pay the bills. And if they're not on board, that's not to say you can't do it. That's to say that you need to be more encouraging. You need to teach them, and you need to walk alongside them a little bit more to get them to the same place that your vision is trying to get to. And that's just one of the things that it can make it a little bit more challenging. But this isn't. Jesus never said this was going to be easy, right? So know your congregation and their desire to grow. The next steps, we really want to be careful, because a lot of folks throw a lot of different statistics around on how you're going to grow. We've seen tremendous growth in the over 200 churches that we've helped in 8 years at the Salomon Foundation. We've seen over 75,000 new people introduced to our churches. We've seen over 20,000 baptisms in the churches that we've helped. And we have phenomenal numbers, and I won't tell you what our statistic is, but I will tell you that right now, what I would recommend you do is you look at a growth of around 20% factor in the first 2 years. So if you're sitting on 100 folks, then in the first 2 years you're going to go to 120, and a lot of you go, well, that's not that good. Again, depending on what you do is really how you grow is relative to what you do and the way you do what you do. So there's a lot of variables. what I'm going to do is walk you through some opportunities here to extrapolate and to understand the examples that I give and then apply it to your situation. But again, the 50%, the 70%, the 100% growth models that are out there are not for everyone. And we want to be really careful how we apply that, because what they'll do is, well, here's how much money you can get from your church as soon as you get in there because of your growth. Well, again, we want to be really careful how we apply that. So I use a 20% factor in the first 2 years, which is, it's what I would say to that is that's stable. It's certainly not great. We're certainly all going to pray that we do better than that, but it's a much better thing to start with than 50, and then to always be banging your head against the wall trying to figure out how to get to 50. So I'm going to use some examples now. What we're going to do is we're going to talk through some scenarios of where you are as a church. And unfortunately with churches, a lot of things come down to numbers. It just seems like everything is numerical. How many are you running? How many did you have this weekend? How many came to that event? How many are in your group? It seems to always be the underlying component within the church. So that's what I kind of base this on. So right now, if you're a church and you're in a leased or owned space and you're running under 200, well, you're looking to grow. Let's say your space is no longer handling that size of group, and you're looking to grow. So what we would recommend, and this is based on over 300 projects in the hopper over 8 years of historical data, and I'm breaking it all out, we would say to you that a purchase of an existing worship facility, a minor rebrand, and then move in and have church. Now, I want to preface some of these by saying to the Weaver guys in the room that we're certainly not telling anyone not to build, not to renovate, not to remodel, to stay away from construction. Certainly not doing that. What we're saying is there are responsible times to do that. And I want to make sure that we walk through and just go through these examples. This is a great model in your area because every one of you has seen an existing worship facility somewhere in Ohio that is for sale, that either the church went away or they're just advancing and they're selling their facility. So it's a very good model to go into. Usually you can get them for 50, 60 cents on the dollar. You can usually get a good price. And then you have some money left over for a rebrand. And I would caution you that a rebrand really means that if it had some exterior aging and things like that have gone on over time, the rebrand means you bring it back and make it pop. Because you want the people that have been driving by not going in to come check you out. So that's what the rebrand represents. So that's a very cost-effective way for a church running under 200 to get to the next step. The next one, and these models are just going to stack right on top of each other because I know we've got a lot of folks here in a lot of different places. From a leased or owned space, when you're running 300 to 500. Now the idea there is that you're generating a lot more income, that you've got, potentially you've been responsible and put some money away. But again, we want to be careful. We want to be careful to understand the best opportunities that are out there. And again, in this market, in this environment, there are some spaces that you can purchase. Existing facility with room to grow to 1,000. Renovate and rebrand. So now we're getting into not necessarily what was a church or a community center. Maybe now we're going into the retail sector. How many of you have seen the empty Kmarts, the empty Targets, the empty Sears? We can go on and on and on. They're out there. They are bang for buck. And now for the Weaver guys, well, this is great because these guys, everything they're talking about applies to a renovation, to getting a big box or something that's already there and it's already got infrastructure and parking. Think about that, folks. Parking spaces are already there. And guess what? On Sunday, you can share with all the surrounding neighbors because nobody's there on Sunday. So there's a lot of opportunity to go into a facility with room to grow to 1,000, renovate and rebrand. And that room to grow to 1,000, that's where that group that's been up here talking before me can really help you to say, what does that look like? What does that look like? Is it a 1 to 3 years, a 3 to 5? It's very important that you understand all that because at the end of the day, when the bills come in, you want to be able to cover them. You want to be responsible of that. So that's a really good model for that church of 300 to 500 to get into a facility that's already there, but to renovate, do a little bit more of an extensive, more than just a rebrand, to actually renovate, rebrand as well, because again, you know, if it was a retail center and now it's going to be an assembly facility where, you know, you're honoring God, you want to present it to the community to bring them in. So that's where the rebrand comes in, and it's so that's a really good model for the 300 to 500 church. The next one is for a church that's running in excess of 500, and this is really where I'm gonna go into my model here, but I'm also gonna say that the ground up, a lot of times you get into that, how big of a facility am I going to need? Because if you're in excess of 500 already, you're marching toward 750 to 1,000. You now need to have a lot of additional space, kid space, as we all know. Young families is how our churches grow, right? We're not growing because we got a bunch of, you know, single people coming in. We got young families. That's who we want to appeal to. So the young families, they need space for the kids. So what we want to look at here is, again, the potential to grow into renovate a big box, or now we're into a ground up. But one of the things, and this is where I start talking about the land, you've got to be very careful when I say provided the land is cooperative. Land being cooperative means that the site development costs are somewhere around 10 to 15% of the overall building costs. That means moving all the dirt, digging all the trenches, putting in all the footings, all of that stuff that you have to do to advance the site, bringing in utilities. We got to be really careful. And the site costs can break a budget. Site development costs can break a budget. Churches get great deals on land. Anybody have an idea why churches get great deal on land? It's not great land. It's the bottom line. A developer or somebody's already done due diligence and found out how many semi-loads of export are going to have to come in, or import are going to have to come in, and how many truckloads of export are going to have to go out. So we really want to be careful. The big box is still the prime way to go here on the church of this size, but this is where you start looking ground up, and there's some real good opportunity there if you can get the right site, and then you can bring economies to the whole process. It's really hard to bring economies right now in this construction environment because most of the markets are really busy. So we really have to be responsible and careful, and again, that's why this group is so good and so amazing to work with. So the next one is, if you're running in excess of 1,000. If you're running in excess of 1,000, you're a large church, you've got a lot of opportunity. But it really doesn't change a whole lot. What it means is you need a bigger box than the church running 500. And it also means that if you're looking at land, you probably need more acreage. So it's even more important that you deal with things on a site to minimize your development costs. So that's, again, this is just another step up, larger church. Again, take advantage of the infrastructure that someone else paid for. We're buying big boxes and retails and other existing facilities around the country as low as $19 on 100. 19. In Jacksonville, we got a church in for $19. And up to $60, $65 to purchase, that's per square foot, to purchase a facility. And then you've got a remodel cost. And I don't even throw out any budget numbers on those anymore because of construction markets are tough. But again, if you're going ground up, you really have to be careful with the site. That's just something that you'll continue to hear. And as you look into developing next steps and growing your church, that's something you really want to be careful of with land. The points to consider in acquisition, facility, renovation, or ground up build. Local municipalities, now I have this up here because I do this in other parts of the country. You all don't seem to have that issue here like they have in some parts of the country. Most of your municipalities, most of your governing bodies are fairly church friendly as far as allowing you in and just either grandfathering or rezoning or whatever that is. But that is something that you've got to know before you put the money down, before you sign on the dotted line. So there's some due diligence that needs to happen. There's also some evaluation of the site that needs to happen. If you think your vision is to go put a building out in the middle of a site, you want to have the site assessed by engineers. There's all kinds of things like setbacks, undisturbed soil requirements, nature reserves, wetlands, underground utilities that can dramatically hinder the development of land. Now those things are not, it will cost me more to build on that land. Those things are, I will not be able to build on that land. Some of those. So there's some really, really careful restrictions and things that you need to go to recognize when a site is available for you and is welcoming and friendly to you, and when it brings enough constraints that you would just say, no, we're not going to do that. So that's something to really keep in mind. During the due diligence period, you want to engage in a designer/builder to ensure that you have an accurate construction budget. The team that you're working with here today, that you're hearing from, that's what they are. They've got a design element working in conjunction with a contracting element that falls underneath a vision casting element. All those work together. You can hire architect only, builder only, and you can do all this in kind of a la carte, if you will. What we found, and again, in doing over 300 of these in 8 years, is that the designer-builder model is the best, most efficient, most cost-effective model that there is. Being under one umbrella, having folks working together is a much better component, especially in a ministry situation. What you really can do is never have to wonder, is somebody in that collective motivated outside of the kingdom? So that's one good component within a church, to stay within a designer builder. Now, if you go outside of the BGW, then I really don't speak to that. But I would say the concept should be the same. To try to one-stop shop is the best way to go. There's also the due diligence period where the leadership should generate a good soft cost budget. Every time you buy something and you move into it, you have to furnish it. You have to put up a sign. You have to do, maybe the parking lot needs to be resurfaced and striped. Soft cost designs, fees, things like that. We see soft costs run as much as 20% of an overall project, whether it's a ground up build or a renovation. Those are usually the costs that you can't get through a loan, or that the contractor doesn't build into his fees, so you've got those. So you really want to be careful as a church to recognize what your soft costs are and anticipate paying as much of those as you can, especially if you're in a loan, because anything you can pay for outside of your loan, obviously you're not going to be paying interest on. So again, there's a responsible element there as well. So recognize your soft costs, ask about those. The guys that are in the room here are great about, walking you through and having you recognize what those costs are going to be. What'd I do? I pushed the wrong button, didn't I? Hang on. I went out of the screen. I had to, sorry. Okay, that was, okay, yeah, those are some of the things right there. I think you guys all have these in your books, but you see all this stuff. There's an awful lot there. The last one I put down there is security. When we deal with churches, we don't implement any type of a security protocol. We just have it on the list because we feel like in 2019 it is important, and it is a factor, and it is something you should consider in your building, whether it's keeping the little ones separated from the adults or whatever that is, check-in stations, cameras. So there's a lot to the soft costs, as you can see, as you start to line all those up. This is my contact information, and like I said, I left cards on everybody's at everybody's positions. And really, more than anything, is if you're a church and you are looking to do something, and financing is something that you're wanting to discuss, we can certainly talk to you about that and see if you are a qualifying entity. As far as investing, we do. Just to give you an example, our passbook savings, as you would note at the bank, which you get less than 1% or even less than that, We start those at 2.25% APR. And some of our rollover stuff starts at 4.65 for 5-year terms. So again, the investment side is great because every dime that comes in on the investment side goes out on the loan side to help churches. So that's a great model, and we really appreciate being here and the opportunity to present to you all today. And if there's anything else, just let me know. I'll be around today. Thank you.